Well, we're here for another Executive Fight Night podcast interview. These are some of my favorite ones because this is pretty much going to be the first time you guys will interact and talk up until fight night. So it gives the audience and us an opportunity to get to know you guys a little bit and why you signed up for this crazy event and all of that good stuff. So let's first start with just introducing yourself. Steve, tell us a little bit about you and your name and all that jazz.
All right. Hey, my name is Steve LeBlanc. I'm actually representing the Be Better Utah Foundation. We're a partner nonprofit with Legends and Executive Fight Night. And, I got a history with you, Rob. We've been friends for a few years now. And you came to me not too long ago and asked if I wanted to participate in this fight night. And I said, yeah, let's do it. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to get into it.
I'm proud of you. A lot of people call and think that will be really good, and they don't answer the call. But Steve, you answered the call, so I'm glad that you did it.
Yeah, it's an honor and a pleasure.
And then tell me a little about you, JP.
Yeah. So JP, that's my name, short for Juan Pablo, but it's easier to say JP. Born in Uruguay, came to the States in 84. Been in Utah ever since. Been in sales most of my life. In one respect, I'm a student of human behavior. Never really got a degree in it, but pretty good at it. When you're in sales, it helps.
Sure.
Read people and kind of anticipate what they move before they do it and be able to react, On my off time, I run big motorcycle events. One of them is called the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, which is a charity that raises money for men's prostate cancer and suicide prevention. I've lost a couple friends to suicide, and I've struggled with mental health my whole life, which, we can kind of relate that based off where you're from. And then I have another one called Motos in Moab, which is like a crazy Burning Man like party in the desert.
Cool.
And then I've thrown a couple big motorcycle shows called the Salty Bike Revival. Get 20,000 people. It's a cool event.
Great.
So yeah, my motorcycles are like kind of my therapy, and I brought my Ducati down today.
Nice.
Whenever I'm feeling a little, I'll jump on the bike.
What do you do professionally?
Professionally, I'm currently the chief marketing and sales officer for a tiny home startup. So we
Awesome.
build ADUs, which is a fancy acronym for accessory dwelling units. So the tiny little casitas that people build behind their homes for their elderly mom, or youth that are priced out of the market. That's happening more and more often. Or people that just want rental income. You can build a little house behind your house, use the equity, deploy it, and then, just keep building
Cool.
long-term residual value.
Great. So, Steve, tell us a little bit about your professional background. I know that you're one of the founders of Be Better Utah, which is going to be awesome. I think it relates to a little bit of your talking points, but I know you have a career in the military. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, going a little bit further back, right out of high school, I enlisted in the United States Air Force. And I was a jet engine mechanic for a few years. Put myself through night school, got my degree, applied for officer training school, and eventually got my commission as an officer. And eventually led multiple organizations and missions and deployments throughout a 21-year career. And I finally retired in 2019. I did a short stint with a defense contractor, General Dynamics, for about a year after that. And then I kind of felt like working for the man just wasn't for me. And I kind of fully retired from business and corporate life. But then shortly after that, retired life wasn't as exciting as I thought it would be. And I wanted to try my hand at entrepreneurship. So my wife and I, we opened up a mental health clinic. And for the past 3 years, we've been providing therapy services through our licensed clinicians, providing talk therapy to our community. And over the last 3 years, we've provided just about 8,000 therapy sessions. And but also through that journey, we found that a lot of the people in our community were not getting the help that they needed because they couldn't afford it. Like a lot of people can't afford their deductible, their copay, or even a cash pay situation,
Yeah.
and they don't get that critical help that they need. And so for our audience, Utah ranks 46 out of 50 when it comes to mental health illnesses for adults. So we're a super, super struggling state from a mental health status. And so that drove my wife's interest in finding a way to help people. And so that drove the vision to start the Be Better Utah Foundation. And she's the founder. I'm the co-founder, and we raise money to help pay for people's mental health services.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's no coincidence that that you're here and we're promoting the foundation. I'm a big believer in it. A lot of our episodes, we talk about mental health and combat sports, and specifically boxing, and how valuable it is to people. And when you and Haley had mentioned Be Better Utah, I thought, what a great idea. It is highly needed. I couldn't be happier supporting it and seeing it grow and continue to get momentum. It's not easy doing a nonprofit. It's not easy getting people to donate and support causes, right? And I love the mission. I love the reason. I believe that it resonates with a lot of people. You know, talk therapy is not that old, right? It's a fairly new science and treatment method, and it's just going to keep getting more needed, right? And so when you have organizations that are willing to help those, and we have a platform that we can use to show interest and get engagement and people to pay attention to it, I think it's an amazing venture. It's an amazing reason, right? And I think with Executive Fight Night, this being our 9th year, and we're doing it at a new location, and it's going to be a little bit more of an intimate venue. I wanted Be Better Utah to be an area where people can actively learn about it and donate. And so when people buy tickets for this show, there's actually an area where people can add any donation they want. Any amount helps. $1 could help. So when people do buy tickets to come see you guys fight, don't forget about that little line item. The 100% of that money goes to your foundation and is used for helping people. And so people sometimes get a little bit nervous when they're working with nonprofits as to who is it going to? Is it going to some CEO's back pocket or just a tax sheltered thing? I can attest to you that it 100% is going to help people and further the cause that you guys started. So along those lines, I think that, when people first hear about Executive Fight Night, they usually hear about it through somebody, or, I called you, you heard about it through one of my good friends, Mike Roberts, who's been a long supporter of Executive Fight Night. And we get on the phone, we talk about it, and you watch clips and go, yeah, it doesn't look that hard, And so now that you guys have been training, you guys have you guys have both played sports, you're athletic guys. What's it been like? What's so far, JP? What's it been like for your training? What has been the most eye-opening, so to speak?
The requirement on cardio. That's the thing I noticed the most. Normal weight training doesn't put your body through that kind of strain, where you're breathing hard, your heart's going, your nervous system's kind of redlined when you're running, and it's different. Yeah, and also when you're not used to running, and I played football and ran track and soccer, but it's been 20 years.
Yeah,
and so a lot of atrophy, down below below the thighs, and when you start moving, you're like, why isn't my legs communicating with the rest of my body?
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because your mind still thinks, oh, I can do that, and then the body just doesn't react.
It's like, nope.
It's fascinating, right? Like there's a little bit of humility that goes along with boxing, because in a lot of activities, sports, things, the penalty for messing up is, oh shoot, or maybe you got embarrassed, or a little bit of humility. The penalty for messing up in boxing is pain.
Yes.
Right? You get you do something wrong, like you get a nice little wake up call as to, oh yeah, I got to keep my right hand up, right? So what has been eye opening for you?
Well, I can totally echo what JP is saying, and I think you and I are probably cut from very similar cloths. I grew up wrestling, playing football, played ice hockey. I did competitive Olympic weightlifting, so we're athletes by trade. But really, stepping into the ring that first time and doing a first sparring session, oh man, that just almost redlined immediately, and just kind of losing track of time, losing track of breathing. But that also the same awareness that came to me so quick was how much my cardio and stamina was suffering. But what's great, I mean, I've been training with Legends Lehigh for the last 3-4 weeks now, and it's been a substantial improvement. Going to their conditioning classes, going to the sparring classes, so I can actually go rounds now and maintain my composure, maintain my mobility, and so just the conditioning and the training really overcomes those shortfalls that you initially identify in this sport.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do is, and the reason why I do this, I've actually been able to get in the ring with both of you guys, is we'll video that part, and then when we get closer to the fight night, we'll get another video, and the drastic difference that happens in 9 weeks from starting in and going, what just hit me and why, and then when you're ready to fight, you know why, right? You see the punches, the game slows down for you, so to speak, and you understand there's a game plan and an execution that we're working on. And what's nice is fight night, those that stick with that plan, execute well, end up doing well, right? And then it's whoever makes the least amount of mistakes typically wins, right? We spend a lot of effort in matching people up appropriately based on skill, age, height, weight. We follow all the rules of USA Boxing. This is a sanctioned bout. You guys will have a record after fight night, which is exciting. I mean, how many people in this world can say that they have fought in a sanctioned USA Boxing match and that they have a boxing record? Very few people are willing to step up to the challenge. What I like to see also is about this time, is during training, we're 6 weeks out now from fight night ish.
5.
Yeah, I think we'll be
weeks.
almost exactly a month tomorrow. What I'm finding is, as I make my rounds to the different gyms, you can see that the people are getting a little tired and their bodies are a little bruised and they're sore. And why did I sign up for this? What was I thinking? I had no idea the commitment. And the athletes, right, you guys specifically, they take it very seriously because your body is sore. You are wanting to push through. And, sometimes I have to have talks with some of these fighters of, remember you signed a contract, you're seeing this through, like, because all of a sudden they're injured or whatever. And what's interesting about that is the people right now about this time period, the ones that want to quit, that I have that conversation of, don't quit. Trust me, you'll regret that your entire life. When they win or lose, when they step out of that ring, they have the best testimonials and life-changing experience because they didn't quit. They saw it through. They did something hard, right? And it's when it gets hard is what makes this worth it. If this were just, not any knock on badminton, but if it was just badminton, like you're just out there. But this is a very serious thing that you're putting your body through, and that there's potential injuries. And again, the penalty for messing up is being punched. It could be a bloody nose, or it could be all kinds of things. So it's a real match. So what are you learning in training camp that you think has changed you as a fighter or as a person?
Definitely need to work on more defense. That's for sure. Yeah, because I'm a little more confident normally, and I rely just on my quick feet movement. But when you take a couple of hits to the head, you're like, okay, you slow down. And there's a shock to your nervous system, and you almost pause in the middle of it. So keeping your hands up is something I've been working on more, whereas before I would just kind of, roll and do some ollie stuff and get out of there. But now I got to sit in the pocket.
In sparring, what I noticed is that you are a natural athlete, right? And boxing has the ability to make that a blessing and a curse, right? And so as an athlete and being able to have fast hands, fast feet, move well, there are some basic principles that sometimes allow you to get away with things, but then all of a sudden you're like, you're tested against somebody that knows how to not allow those things to work, and then the humility starts to happen. So what's nice is when athletes, talented people, apply technique and real training, they are tough to fight because, I believe that I've heard this saying a long time ago that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, right? So when you take your natural God-given gifts and you apply training and working hard and putting in the time, I mean, you guys are both going to be a force to reckon with, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the tribe of people is one area that we're pretty proud of, and I think you guys have both. What's cool is you guys are experiencing two different types of training. You're training out of Tim Carroll's gym, which Tim is a longtime friend over many years. He actually cornered me in a fight once, long time ago, fight that I got knocked out in. And we have a long history, and so it's cool to have this kind of full circle where Tim has just been a great coach and a great fighter, and having him participate in Executive Fight Night is really fun for me. Sure. And then we've also got where you're training out of a Legends gym, and so you kind of see some of the bonds and the camaraderie and the culture that's built. Tell me a little bit about your experience so far.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I just had a conversation with some of the coaches at Legends Lehigh the other day, and I was able to express to them the thanks, actually, my thanks for the energy that they bring to the training, and it's a family feeling, right, in these gyms. It's not something that I've seen in a long time, so I haven't really been in a combat sports type of environment, but I can see where the coaches here, they really apply connection, not just on the physical level, but an emotional level. I mean, this boxing is really intimate. Right, you know, whether it's intimate with your opponent or the person you're training with, there's a good connection that happens, and you can just kind of feel the positivity that comes through that, and that's what I recognize working with the coaches and the team here.
Yeah, isn't it ironic, right? Like, you're in a combat sport. The intention is combat, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean hostility, anger. I mean, it's an act of violence, but it's not the intention to necessarily hurt somebody. And the irony is really thick there, because some of the best bonds and some of the best friendships and tribes that you create in a boxing environment or combat sports in general are deep, right? You know, it becomes a brotherhood almost. So I'm assuming that's exactly how it is at Tim's place as well.
Yeah, Tim's kind of a good fit because I come from nothing, and his style's a little more street. And we're going to be training in his, you're going to see it tomorrow when we go to his house, and he's turned his home into a gym, which is pretty cool. And his fighters are, they just swept a St. George event. They took the whole thing.
I saw that.
Cool. Yeah. And I kind of look at it on the outside and say, it's cool to be part of it. Those guys are started way earlier, they're in their 20s, and I'm on the other end, but it's cool to see. And then I'm glad you brought up the intention thing. One of my friends, he reached out. He's like, "Hey, now you get to get out decades of trauma and violence against you." And I'm like, "That's not how I see it. I see it as I'm fighting myself. Like you could be anybody. That's not who I'm looking at. So win or lose, I already won because the person that I was, before the divorce, wouldn't have showed up because." He would have either self-sabotaged, or he would have did the calculus and said, "Oh, I've got a 75% chance of losing. I'm not doing it. I want to win, or I'm not doing it." Now I'm looking at him. I was probably more like 60-40, but as long as it's close to 50-50, I'm okay. I'm going to do it. So,
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that that to have the courage and the stick-to-itiveness in hard situations is what makes it worth it, right? When you win or lose, the respect that is gained and the knowledge that you absorb, this is something that you'll take with you your entire life, and probably pass this on to other people so that they can experience what it means to show up and do something that's not easy, that's not hard. You feel silly in the beginning. Yep. You've got, especially when you're used to taking calculated risks and trying to make sure that the things are stacked in your favor. And, obviously as smart, successful guys, you can do that often. And now you're putting yourself in a very vulnerable position where you're kind of trusting a process and you're trusting that your work and ability to get the job done is going to be fine, right? So there is no guarantee in this, right? There is zero guarantee. So you are putting it up to your ability to train and work hard and hope for the best outcome. I think the way that you looked at it, the way that you are looking at it, I think is a healthy way to look at boxing in general. And I've mentioned this in a few episodes is boxing is a sport, right? It is a sport and you are competing against another person, and that person is just somebody you're scoring points against. They're trying to score points with you. Obviously, the penalties are pain, but it is still that, right? And I think that's where boxing gets misunderstood, where maybe the person that's unaware of what it is, they see two people in the ring beating the hell out of each other, and that there's not a whole lot of method and science and technique behind it, when in fact that couldn't be further from the truth, is that it's a very much a thinking man's sport, and that the technique and the level of calm that you have to create to make good decisions in a split second, it's all part of staying mentally aware and focused, right? It's not this, go get adrenaline pump and go out and roar, and it's this act of violence, right? It's really not that at all. It's very much trying to stay calm and focused, right? When people lose their shit, that's when they lose, right? Like I see people all the time. Back when I was training and competing, I knew if I can get in their head and get them upset or angry or mad and they want to kill me or whatever, it was over. They were done. The fight was done because they stopped thinking, right? To stay calm and be able to make good decisions on the fly, that's where you can let the game slow down and you have a better advantage over that. Yeah, so with this and how it relates to your life, your family, I love hearing stories of what you're noticing, the correlations between the two. Any relevance to your training and your career and all of those things?
Yeah, if I may, through a 21-year military career, some core values and core implementations have to be there: commitment, dedication, focus, honor. All these components just fold right into what we're doing in this boxing ring, right? It takes a lot of commitment and dedication to do what we're doing. And I'm just, if I may, I'm really proud of you for what you're doing. It takes you learn a lot of self-love and self-respect doing this, and it just comes out tenfold as you improve and get stronger, get faster, and it just all folds into what we have done in our professional lives and our educational lives and our personal lives. It's just a clear overlap.
Yeah, I agree. Jordan Peterson, there's a saying or a speech that he made, and it's kind of turned into all kinds of reels, and it's that I'm going to slaughter it, but the essence of it is that people that are capable of doing harm and choose not to are what good men are, right? So if you don't have the ability to harm people, you're not really making a choice to not harm them. You're almost useless. Yeah, and for lack of a better word, I think you're not choosing. So what you're learning in boxing and in combat sports in general is you're capable of doing serious harm, right? And I find it fascinating that the better you get at this, the more calm you become, right? Like I find myself, and I need to be better at this, quite honestly, is having more empathy for people that are struggling with some things that I'm going, man, that's a Tuesday for me, and this is like really hurting you. And I feel bad even saying that, because I think what's allowed me to maintain calm in high pressure situations or work related stuff, or when people are really at a high stress level, you learn to manage stress well, you learn to manage adrenaline well, and you maintain calm. I think some of the most violent, the people that are capable of the most violent, I've noticed tend to be the most calm and the nicest people. And I think it's because what you're capable of doing and what you learn to do, and the sacrifices and the what you have to learn to be able to do that, there's no need to be angry or aggressive, right? Like it's usually the guys with the big mouths and yell and blah 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 are the ones that have zero fear of, like, they're just I want to give them a hug.
And that's a learned trait, right? It's not something that is innately available to people. It's usually learned either through pain. It's learned through a mentor, a teacher, it's learned through therapy, or it's learned through sports.
Yes.
Right. And so the folks that can learn that capability typically become some of the most successful, whether it's in their specialty, their sport, or their family life.
Yeah, and I see that the opposite is also true, especially in the business world and boxing. And, you know, I've seen some business owners that have failed and they point fingers at everybody else, right?
Yeah.
That their sad sob story of these guys did this to me and they screwed me out of this. And they're always pointing a finger at somebody else rather than looking in the mirror and going, where did I mess up? What did I do wrong here? How am I responsible for my outcome? And I think boxing kind of creates that equalizer of you are responsible for your success and failure 100%. And I think it's a weak person to sit there and point a finger at somebody else and say that my life is a disaster because of what this happened to me, and that victim mentality. I have a hard time resonating with people, and I'm truly trying to be more patient with people like that. It is a hard one for me to grasp because I think we can all relate. We've had some very difficult times in our life. We've all gone through something. Every human on this earth has had to deal with things at some degree or another, and it's not better or worse or more tragic or less tragic. I think it's our job to take ownership and take responsibility and to develop the skills and become dangerous people, and then choose to be kind and peace, right? Yeah. I believe that to my core, and watching the victims and the finger pointers, it's sad. Yeah. It's really sad because it's like, what lesson do you need to learn to be able to take responsibility? And in boxing, right, like it happens every year. I do this speech when we onboard everybody, and it's one of my favorite parts of Executive Fight Night is because we are teaching in 9 weeks what most people take a couple years to learn, right? You're drinking water through a fire hose. The training camp that we're putting you guys through, it's intense, right? This is a real fight. This is not some watered down version of a fight. Like, you are going to be in the ring and you are going to be competing. And I think what you're learning through this is that you can feel it when you have a good sparring day or a bad sparring day or a good day in conditioning or whatever. So every single year we'll get executives or influencers, business owners that sign up for this and they don't take it seriously, and they train half-heartedly, and they kind of put it as, oh, I'll be fine. It's only 3 rounds. I can do that. I ran Spartans or marathons or did this. It's no big deal. Like, the best thing is to see those people get in the ring and sadly to get some humble pie, right? Because 100% of the time those guys get knocked out. It's crazy. Like, and I say the speech every year, 9 years running, and there'll be somebody this year that doesn't take it seriously, that thinks that they're miles ahead of everybody else, and that humble pie is coming.
To answer your question about how it overlaps with certain things, I wanted to bring up 1 or 2 things. One, I had growing up a learning disability with dyslexia and ADHD. And so it was always hard for me to focus and have discipline. Like, those words were like the worst things you could say because I would do the opposite.
Yeah.
I did NJROTC for 4 years, for example, Naval Junior Officer Training Corps. And I was doing rifles every day because I couldn't afford to make my suit look very nice. And it was kind of like a FU to the man. And we got all the way to when the recruiters came, and I got a 96 on the ASVAB, and they're like, you could do anything you want. You can be in intelligence. I was like, I want to be a pilot. That's all I want to do. And the eye test came. And I was like, that's it. I don't want to do any of it. I don't want to talk to any of you guys. And I just dipped. And I regret it because it wasn't like 3 or 4 years later that they allowed corrective surgery
to fix that.
And I wish I would have, stayed in. And then, so that's on the negative side. Boxing for me is really helping with the dyslexia. I've noticed constantly pushing left, right, right, whereas my brain is wanting to go right, left, right, left, right, left.
Yeah.
And then when you're facing the mirror, you're like, okay, which side is it coming from? And so it's pretty challenging.
Interesting.
And then with people who have ADHD, the repetition is like tenfold for us to learn and keep things down. And so it takes so much more effort. And a lot of people with this affliction, we don't do very well in these scenarios. What we're really good at is putting ourselves in harm's way in emergency situations and adrenaline scenarios. So that's like the superpower that I do have, is that I don't freak out in situations like this. But the part where I struggle is, okay, I got the memorization part. Is tough.
Of course.
And then in the motorcycle world, it's dangerous. I mean, every time you get on a bike, there's a checked out soccer mom waiting to kill you. It's just what it is.
Yep.
And I have always loved riding the bike. It's one of the few places where I find peace. I get into the zone, and I just, the voices turn off.
Yeah.
And I kind of go a little further and go a little further. And so after the divorce, I hopped on the bike and I rode to Prudhoe Bay, which is on the furthest north point of Alaska. So it's past the Arctic Circle sign.
It's quite a ride.
250. Yeah, it was 12,000 miles, 2 months. I did it solo. I camped the whole way. They actually checked my gun at the Canadian border, so I was defenseless against the bear, which I ran into 17.
Wow.
Between black bear and grizzly and everything.
What an adventure.
Yeah, it was. What I learned was it was more of a mental game than anything.
Of course.
Because you're dealing with hypothermia, animals. You're seeing things that aren't there. You're riding 10 hours a day, nonstop, in the cold and changing temperatures. And when you get across the Brooks Range and you're on the ice road, which is where a lot of people die, there's a Memorial gas station 250 miles south of Prudhoe Bay. It's the last gas station. So that's a pump. The other one is like a tank, and you got to figure out how to use it. And unless you get a bike that can do at least 400 miles, you're not going to make it. So I had a big BMW that made it. But when you're there, I walked in, and I had this overwhelming sense of like dark, and I looked in sadness, and I looked at the walls, and there were these little brass placards, like 1 inch by 2 inches, and it's just floor to ceiling, and the hallway's completely covered. And I was like, what is this? And I go up to the counter. I'm like, what are these names? Are these guys that like did cool things with their trucks? And he's like, no, those are all the people that died on this road.
Interesting.
Yeah, the Dalton is a widowmaker. It kills people every year. And so I had a moment where I was covered in this material that they put down on the roads that kind of cause the roads to seal themselves back up, like a liquid concrete. It's a mix of magnesium and calcium, so when it gets wet, it fills in the ruts. Because it's not paved, it can't be. The tundra takes it over every year. And it just cakes to you. So I had like 80 pounds worth of this cement stuff on my riding gear. I'm exhausted. I'd crashed 7 times. I'm on the side of the road, just dejected. I'm 300 miles from the end. And I'm like, maybe I just turn around. And in the distance, I thought was a mirage, and it got closer and got closer. And there are these 2 women from Peru on bicycles that have been pedaling for 18 months.
Wow.
And they're like, hola. And I'm like, fuck it. Pick the bike up.
Keep going, man.
Kept going. I just need this little more inspiration. But boxing kind of similar to motorcycles. It's very hard.
Yeah.
It's dangerous. But it is really rewarding when you push past that fear and that pain point and that exhaustion and keep going. And it's one of the few things other than motorcycles where I actually feel more alive because it's dangerous.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of that story is wonderful, and I think it does make a lot of sense, right? Like, I think oftentimes people confuse adrenaline junkie with need for purpose and exploring and willing to do things that are dangerous or that come with adrenaline, but it's not the intention, right? I think that gets confused a lot, is that, I personally have no desire to experience what death feels like. I don't want to push myself to those limits, but I am willing to do hard things because I like the reward of doing the hard thing and the sacrifice and determination. And I personally believe that I'm willing to do what it takes, right? And I think that's what you're saying, is that little inspiration or that little gut check of when you want to quit, there's somebody else doing something, and that reminded you is why you did it in the first place. And I think it's totally appropriate with boxing and with competing and and doing what you guys are going to do on May 17th is that this wasn't just two guys that signed up and said, hey, I'm going to jump in the ring and see what happens, right? This is two guys that have dedicated 9 weeks and sacrificed and bled and bruised and done all that is required so that when you do step in the ring, that you are ready, that you can look your opponent in the face and say, good luck to you, I'm here to win, right? And has nothing to do with the opponent, right? No. It really doesn't. It has to do with you against yourself, right. And did you do the work, and did you put in the time, and is it your night, right? Like, and that is such a powerful feeling, because you can walk out of the ring, win or lose, and know that you did the work. You did what you were supposed to do, and sometimes it goes your way and sometimes it doesn't, but you can look in the mirror and say, I did everything I could do, right? And so that's that sense of pride and feeling of ambition and willing to risk failure in front of a lot of people because that outcome could be great, right?
Yeah. And I would argue, win, lose, or draw, there's no failure there
right.
at all, right? It's, we're winning.
Just being there.
Just being there. Mm-hmm. We're both won just being there.
Yeah, it's an experience that's so exciting, and this event particular we always go over the top, and it's crazy. And I I have competed in some really strange venues and really broken down warehouses and places you would not bring your friends to, or that's amateur boxing. Typically, is you compete in some gnarly places, and that's really what it's for, is to kind of create experience. And then if it ends up becoming your sport and you go to another level, then things get better, right? But what we try to do is we recreate the Vegas style show of ring girls and walkout music and production that's just over the top, and because we want to create an experience where your fans, your family members, your coworkers, staff, employees, customers, all of that can see, wow, I know I've done my job. If everyone that walks out of that building go, holy crap, they did all this.
That's a good show.
Yeah, it's fun for me. I find it, this time of year is my favorite time of year. I've got a lot going on with work, and I love doing these events. They're fun, and I think why I love them is meeting guys like you, hearing your stories, seeing people willing to put this to the test, and then feeling the culture of what's been created and seeing it duplicated time and time again. And we keep pushing the envelope, keep trying to make it better. It's very fulfilling for me, and I love doing them. I want to continue to do them. So out of all of this, what do you think the number one thing, if somebody is contemplating doing this next year, want to be involved in executive fight night, or even getting involved in boxing, what do you think, what's some words of wisdom that you think you could give away to somebody?
If you have any desire to test yourself, test your willingness, test your desire, test your capabilities, test your commitment, this is something you should consider. I mean, it is going to test your limits. It's going to push you to the edge, but it's going to wake you up too. And it's really going to challenge you. It's going to make you feel alive. It's going to make you feel scared. Mm-hmm. It's going to make you feel excited. And if you have any interest in feeling any of those things again, this is what you need to try.
I like that. I think that's true. And at some point in life, probably around our ages, it's when you kind of need that wake up again sometimes. Yeah, it's kind of ironic that it all is almost centered around this phase in life sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Same question to you.
For the people that are really struggling mentally and kind of in the dark, having a couple of things: a deadline that you can't get around, something to work toward, that it's not just kind of ethereal. Maybe one day, it's happening. Here's the date, and here's the time. And so it's kind of, and then to be in a place where life beats you up, right? Mm-hmm. It tears you down. And there's not a lot of opportunity where you can actually stand up for yourself legally and punch back. Mm-hmm. This is one of the few places that you can do that and come out and everything's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that, you're actively and metaphorically pushing back on hard things and not falling victim to circumstance, right? There's a lot of metaphors here, but I think it's very real in that you are not going to be a victim. You're going to gain the skill sets and put in the work to end up a better person and end up better than you were before you engaged in something like this. And again, this isn't just this adrenaline jumping out of an airplane one time excitement, I did it, kind of bucket list. This is a skill you're gaining. This will be knowledge that you now have. This will be something that you've experienced firsthand that isn't relatable to a lot of people. I was seriously joking earlier, but it is a real thing. It's kind of the Legends handshake that we teach people that gets passed on. That when you're in combat sports and you're given knuckles and high fives, you can generally tell the people that don't know what they're doing or know how to fight, because when you do the fist bump, they're hitting your hand, right?
Yeah.
And that comes with pain and damage and disrespect almost, but it's not on purpose. They just don't know, right?
Yeah.
They don't know what happens when you hit somebody. So that nonchalant tap that you learn in combat sports, and it's kind of this mutual level of respect that you now have that becomes firsthand knowledge that you can share with other people. And my hope is through this experience, as you guys continue to learn this, you may never have the desire to step into a boxing ring again, but you did walk away with something outstanding and a skill. And now my hope is that it gets paid forward and that you can help other people see the value in doing something like this. There's all kinds of combat sports that are so valuable. Jiu-jitsu is one of my favorites. There's, of course, I am biased to boxing, but there's a lot of these things that whether when you need that push or you need that purpose in life, you need that extra thing that's been, missing and you're not quite sure what it is. I challenge the audience to do what these guys are doing and try something hard. Try something that makes you feel uncomfortable, where you're going to feel silly for a little bit. Take the risk of not having the scale stacked in your favor and see what happens. What's the worst case scenario here? Like, I had a friend of mine who challenged me to do something hard, and he said, Rod, if it doesn't work out, I'll gladly refund your misery. And it's never left my mind. So every time I'm trying to decide on something or do something, well, I'm willing to try it because I want my life to be good. I want it to be purposeful and have meaning. And doing things like this allow that. So I want to thank you guys for coming. Yeah. I think that your stories are great. Your reasons for doing this are fantastic. Be Better Utah. I want to make sure that we highlight that, and that anybody listening can go and donate, and there'll be links and information in this episode. Click the like and subscribe button. Love to hear your comments in the comments section. And thanks again for coming, guys, and hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Amen. Such a pleasure.
You too, man.